In this video, I'll go over my entire Markdown workflow. Get ready and grab your popcorn because it's going to be a long one. And I'm going to start with the first tip, which is better bullet points. I'll show you the plugin later on, but this is how it works. I'm just going to type line 1. If I press enter, it's going to take me to the line below and automatically create a bullet point with the same indentation. I'm on line 2. I'm going to do it again. Takes me down to line 3. Now, if I put a colon at the end and hit enter, it's going to indent the next bullet point. And I can start typing text here. Line 4, if I hit enter again, it's going to bring me down. If I put a colon at the end, it's going to indent it. In this line, I'm going to delete the bullet point and I'm going to add a number instead, 1 dot, and I'm just going to type some text. If I hit enter, it's going to automatically increase the number. Line 7, line 8, and so on. I'm going to press enter once. And if I press enter again, it's going to take me to the line below without any bullet points. And I can add a new one here if I want to, or go to a next paragraph. So moving on to the next tip. Notice that I have an undercurl here because I have some misspelled words. Notice also on the bottom that spell is on. I manually added this to my Lua line, but you can toggle spelling with letter US. Notice that it changed. I'm going to re-enable it and it shows me the words that are misspelled. I can navigate between the misspellings using these two. So I'm pressing the keys right now. Notice that it started over. I added a keymap to correct a word. So you can press letter. You will see the letter M here for markdown. This P in square brackets means that it's just something personal, something that I added. This is not a default in lazyvim. So if I press M, shows me the markdown options. S, I left it here, is for spell. So I press S. And then if I press S again, it's going to show me the spelling suggestions. Then I can choose one of these. If I press 1, it's going to correct only that word. I created a few other keymaps as well. If I hover over this and I press letter MSG to add the word to the spell file, I'm going to press G right now. And that added it to the dictionary, we could say. What if I don't want to add that word? I can undo it. I created another keymap for that, letter MS and the letter U. And that removes it from the file. If you notice here at the bottom as well, I also added another keymap if you want to repeat the correction across the file with letter MSR. So I'm going to correct this one. This has 4 L's. This one has only 3. So I'm going to correct this one with letter MSS and I'm going to press 1. That corrected it. Now if I press down here, letter MSR to repeat, notice the message here, no previous spell replacement. So as you can see, that does not work. I haven't looked at it, but if you know how to fix it, let me know down in the comments. I'm not sure why, but when I open the dashboard-nvim plugin and press S really fast to restore the session, I guess I don't give time for the auto command to kick in, so spell is off. So if you use the dashboard plugin, just wait a few seconds before pressing S to restore a session. I haven't had time to look at that, but if you know how to fix it, let me know down in the comments as well. Now, where is the dictionary that I was talking about? Personally, as you can see down here, I have it in my .files directory. Something that John McBride recommends, don't manually add words to the file, but instead it's recommended to add them with the mapping so that Neovim recompiles the file. I haven't tested this, so I cannot tell for sure, but just so you keep it in mind. Now, there's an issue if you use tmux. The undercurl is not going to show up properly. So you need to add a few lines to your tmux configuration file. I have them listed here. And something that you have to be aware of is that after you change that and reload the tmux configuration file, you have to kill the tmux session for the changes to be applied. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You can find my tmux configuration file in my .files. Let me navigate to that directory. Let me open the file. I'm just going to look for it. tmux.conf. Here it is. And the lines that I was mentioning are at the top of the file. Let me go there. And here they are. So this is just in case you use tmux. If you don't, you can ignore this section. For the lazyvim distribution, there's an auto command that enables spelling. I'm going to leave the link here. And also it comes pre-configured with this language. If you want to know more about spell, here's a video that I watched. It's really useful. Before we continue, I want to show you where all these files are. They're in my .files. You can see the link down here. So for example, if you want to search for a keymap that I show in the video, you want to see how it's configured, you can just select the text here. Let me grab this. I'm going to go to my .files directory. Here's the keymaps file. I have it open on this other tab. Now I'm going to search for that keymap, letter FD. This is to delete the current file. Here's the keymap. Notice that it calls a function, and the function is always above the keymap. So you can see that here. So in this file, keymaps.lua is where I configure every single one of them, unless I tell you otherwise. And you can see the path to the file here. Okay, so moving on to the next tip. Notice that I'm in the markdown tips section right now. And this is a subheading in that section. I use this plugin created by Folky. It comes by default with lazyvim. I'm going to show you what the plugin is later. Just going to show you how it works first. I'm going to create a to-do item here. I'm just going to type to-do. I'm going to press ctrl+y to accept that. And I'm just going to add some text here. Test to do during video. I can mark it as done with letter T, as you can see here, and then the letter D. The only thing that it does is changes this colon to a semicolon so that it's not recognized as a to-do item anymore. If I press letter TD again, it's going to toggle it, letter TD. If I want to list all of them, as you can see down here, is with letter T is for to do, so I'm going to press T, and L is to list them with Telescope, so I'm going to press L. Shows me here which ones I have. This one is in a different file. You can see the path of the file here. And these two are in the current file. This is the one that we just created. So what if I want to jump to this one? I just hit enter and it's going to take me there. I can press again letter TL. I can jump to the one that I recently created, which is here. I'm just going to press enter. It's going to take me there. Letter TL only shows me to do items, but I created another keymap, letter TA, and it also shows me other tags, not only to do. Here's a note, for example, and there's a lot more. I'm gonna delete this. So this keymap, as you can see here, is configured in the Telescope plugin. Let me go to my .files real quick. I'm gonna look for that file, telescope.lua, here it is. Oh, and this is where I configure both of them, letter TL and letter TA. So in case that you wanna add them, you'll be able to find that in my .files as well. Let me go back to the file. So this is the only one configured in my keymaps. I'm gonna fix this real quick. Okay, so it's now fixed. The next item in the list is the markdown table of contents. So as you can see here, it's going to add it to the top of the file if there's not a table of contents. And if there's one already, it's just going to update it. It doesn't matter if there's front matter at the top or not. It's going to detect it and not cause any issues. To generate it, I use the plugin that you see listed here. That is installed as a lazy extra. I'm going to show you how that is done in a minute. So let me show you how this works. I'll go to the top of the file. Here's the table of contents. You can see that here are all the links. If you want to jump to a specific location, you can just put yourself in here and press GT. It's going to take you there. But I'm going to delete it and show you how it's added again. Let me just fold this section real quick. I'm going to delete it. So that deleted the entire table of contents. Notice that I have front matter here at the top of this file. So it doesn't matter if you do or if you don't, it's going to recognize it and add it correctly. So I'm going to press letter M for markdown, as you see here, and then T for the table of contents. So I'm going to press T. It added it. I get a warning here. I'm just going to change this heading to 2. So it's happy. Not sure why that is, but works. And it added it properly. So everything is back in there. If I press letter MT again, it noticed that it says updated and file saved. Okay, so moving on to the next tip. A lot of times I need to delete the file that I'm currently working on. Let me jump to a file real quick. So this is my daily note. So let's say that I want to delete it. I can press letter F as in file. And then as you can see here, capital D. I'm gonna get a confirmation. I have to type DEL. If I type that, the file was deleted from disk. I'm gonna close out of here. Let me go to Finder so that I can show you that it was actually deleted. And here it is, July 4th. Thursday. This is for Mac OS because that's what I use. It uses the trash app to send the file to the trash. If you're on Linux, I think you need to install the trash app too, not sure, but you can go and update the keymap as well. Now moving on to the next one. If I want to create or jump to my daily note, I press hyper+t+r on my keyboard. The daily note was created because this was the one that we just deleted a moment ago. It created a tmux session with the note name and it moved me to the file so that I can edit it. Let's say that I want to save something. Testing. I just added some text here. Let me go to a completely different app. Let's say that I'm here in my browser and I need to go back to my daily note. I press hyper+t+r. So as you can see here, it's going to create a daily note with the name automatically. It's going to put it in this directory. If the directories do not exist, it's going to create them. If the daily note does not exist, it's also going to create it. And then after that, it's going to create a tmux session with the note name in detached mode and start Neovim. If a tmux session already exists, it's just going to switch to it instead of creating it. So if I press hyper+t+r again, and if I look at my sessions, I just see one because it's just attached to the existing session. I'm going to show you how hyper+t+r works later on, so don't worry about that. Also in my .files, you will be able to find the script that does this. Here's the directory. So just make sure that the script is executable because it's a bash script. Okay, so now the next tip. I use this in my Obsidian vault. This is useful in case that I want to have stuff linked to my daily note. So I use markdown headings with the date on a specific note. Then in the Obsidian application, I can go to a specific day and see which headings are linked to that note. I'll go to my Obsidian directory. I'll go to this other file, XOA, that I have in the other tab. And I'm going to create a heading right now. I'm going to press leader. If I press K, and if I press K again, it's going to add an H2 heading. So I'm going to press K, add the heading. Notice the message, daily note already exists. If the daily note does not exist, it will create it automatically for me. I'm just going to add some text here. I'm just going to close so that it recognizes the file because it already exists. I'm going to reopen. I'll fix that because it should recognize it already. But if now I go to Obsidian, notice that I'm in the notes for today. And if I come down here, I will be able to find that link, random words surfing. So this is useful in case you want to keep some sort of a journal. I can go back to each day and see what I worked on. So that's why I add this every time I add a new heading, but that's just personal preference. So as you can see down here, just a reminder, these key maps are going to add the heading and also create the daily notes if it does not exist. If you don't want to create the daily note, just comment that line in the key map. And here's the key maps that I use. This is for a heading 1, this is for a heading 2, this is for a heading 3, and so on. Sometimes I also need to view and paste images in Neovim. So if I hover over this, you're gonna see that it's an image of my blog. If I hover over this other one here, it's also an image, but notice this section. This image was loaded from a URL. It's not stored locally. So this is how I view images. If I wanna paste an image, let me do that down here. I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this. And if I press Ctrl+A, it pasted the image automatically. Notice that it saved it in this AVIF format. I configured a few keymaps for images. If I press letter I, you're gonna see them. You can delete the image file. You can open the image in Finder, open the image in the preview app and refresh images. Notice the format that it saved the image in, AVIF. You can save it in different formats. I'll show you how to set that up later on as well. Okay, moving on to the next one. I use snippets a lot. So if I type down here, bash, I'm gonna hit Ctrl+Y. It's going to add a snippet for me and I can start typing bash code in there. I can also add a link. If I type link, Ctrl+Y to accept that. I'm just gonna type something in here. If I press tab, jumps to this part so I can paste the URL or something. Just gonna grab this, copy, and paste it there. I can also add a link that opens the page in a new tab. This is useful sometimes in my blog post. Link T, Ctrl+Y to accept it. New page. If I hit tab, jumps here. I can paste this and it's there. That is also the way that I add to-do items, which is the way that I showed you. If I type to-do, Ctrl+Y to accept it, and I can add the text there. I'm just gonna delete this. So how do I add the snippets? Let me go back to my .files latest directory. Let me navigate here back to this snippets folder. Here are the ones that I have for Markdown. If I open that file, this is where I configure them. I didn't do anything else. Snippets work out of the box with the lazyvim.org distribution. So just add these files and you should get them working as well. Okay, so how to bold? I didn't find another way to do this, so I had to hack my way around it. This needs this plugin, mini.surround, so make sure you have it installed. So if you want to bold text, this is how I used to do it in the past. Or if I wanted to unbold, this is how I did it as well. But I configured a key map, as you can see here, letter MB. So if, let's say that I'm on this word and I just press letter M for markdown, I press B, just gonna bold that word. If I put the cursor in one of the asterisks and I press letter MB, it's just gonna let me know that you have to run it inside the bold text. So I'm just gonna move to the right, letter MB, it's just gonna unbold it. I'm gonna select this paragraph with BIP, then I'm going to do letter MB. Notice that it did the entire paragraph. If I wanna unbold the entire paragraph, I just need to be on the first line. I'm gonna press letter MB again. If I wanna do this entire line, I'm just gonna select the entire line, letter MB, and the same thing if I wanna unbold it, letter MB. Again, this is a key map that I configured. Let me show it to you real quick. Just gonna select this text, gonna jump back to my files. The key maps file is here. I'm gonna search for this text and it's right here. This is if you run it in visual mode. Here is the code. And this is if you run it in normal mode. It works in multi-lines. Needs a few improvements, but it gets the job done. Remember that you need to have this plugin installed. Now, how to jump between markdown headings. Let's say that I have all my markdown headings unfolded and I want to jump between them. I'm going to press letter MFU to unfold everything. And I can jump between the headings with GJ and GK. So I'm going to press GK, GK again takes me up, GK again, GJ takes me down, GJ takes me down. I'm just gonna fold everything back. I'm gonna show you how I fold everything as well later on. So that's pretty useful in case I want to navigate between markdown headings. There's something that you need to keep in mind here because lazyvim already uses GJ and GK, uses those two mappings for better up and down. You can see what they do here. I left an example and everything. You can go and read this, but both of them work. So I can navigate here between these two, and I can also do GJ and GK. Something else that I forgot to mention here, follow the markdown convention and use just a single H1 heading in your file for this to work. If you have multiple H1 headings, this is not gonna work well. Okay, so moving on to the next, how to fold all the headings. There's a warning here. Do not leave headings of the same level without any text between them, or this is not gonna work properly. So I created 4 key maps here. MFJ is to fold level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And MFU is to unfold everything. Everything is in the key maps file. If you wanna grab these, go and get them there. But if I press leader M, you're gonna see here F is for fold, and I'm gonna press K. So I see all my level 2 headings. If I press leader M, F, L, I see my level 2 and my level 3 headings as well. Let me jump to another file real quick. I'm just gonna open this test headings file. I'm gonna press here as well, leader MFK, get all my 2 headings, leader MFL, get all my 3 headings. This is what I was talking about. Do not leave headings of the same level without any text between them, because this is not gonna work. Notice that this is a level 3 heading. This is a level 3 heading as well. Just gonna close out of this. I'm gonna reopen the file. And now if I fold with leader MFL, notice that it's not working well, but it's because of that, because I have 2 headings of the same level without any text between them. Just gonna undo the changes, leader MF3, now it works fine. Okay, so down here in the same section, I left some folding basics. You can learn more about folding. You can see your folding options here. If I run this command, it's gonna show you here at the bottom. And there's also this video that I would recommend you watching if you wanna know more about folds. Really great video, so go and check it out if you have the time. Now the next one is you normally fold with ZA. If I press here, ZA is gonna fold, ZA is gonna unfold. So if I press enter on each heading, it's just gonna fold or unfold it. You will be able to find that in my key maps as well. If you like this content, if you find this useful, and if you wanna share a tip, you can do it here. I left the link. That would help me a lot so that I can keep creating more videos similar to this one. You can also follow me on Twitter. I left the link here. Here's a few things that you need to be aware of as well. I use the lazyvim.org distro. So the key maps that I use are optimized to be compatible with that distribution the most. If you're using a different one, I'm not exactly sure if everything is gonna work, but you can give it a try. One other thing that you need to keep in mind is that I use Mac OS. So if you're in Linux, you probably won't have to do a few changes. Not much, but a few of them. Now this is not a distribution, the one that I'm using right now. It's just my personal setup, so things change. Case that you clone my .files latest directory, one day I may use a plugin, the next day I may switch it to something different. So just keep that in mind. If you want to grab my entire config, it's in my .files, you can just download it. So you don't have to configure it yourself, you just grab it and start using it, see if you like it or not. Okay, I'm also going to be recommending other YouTube videos that I have. I'm going to include all of them in the video description. So this is where the guide is gonna be. It's not uploaded yet, but you will be able to find everything that I'm following right now listed here in the guide. So I'll leave that in the video description as well. I'm just gonna fold everything with leader MF2. I'm also going to leave a link to my .files in the video description, but you can also find that in the blog post in case that you forget. So now let's move on to the next tip. If I try to add a snippet, you notice that if I add here link, if I press enter, nothing happens. The completion is not accepted until I press Ctrl+Y. So I changed that. If you want to see where that is, let me grab this. Let me go to my .files. Let me open that file. And here it is. It's this file. You can see the path here at the top. And this is what I did, just disabled, enter. So it uses the default, which is Ctrl+Y. In case you want to do that as well, because it gets pretty annoying. And it gets in the way a lot when you're typing. Okay, next, working with marks. So when you're in normal mode, if you press M and then a letter, that's gonna create a mark. Then if you wanna jump to a mark, you can use the single quote and the letter of the mark, or the backtick and the letter of the mark. This one jumps to the line, and this one jumps directly to the character where you set the mark. I also created a key map to delete all the marks with letter MD. So I'm going to leave a mark here. I'm gonna press M again. I'm gonna leave another mark here, MN. Notice that the letter shows here on the left hand side. So now let me go to the top of the file and I'm gonna press single quote M, jumped to that line. Let me now go to the bottom of the file, single quote N, jumps to this other mark. I'm gonna delete them with letter M, capital D, and I got rid of them. In case that you wanna make the selected text a link, I'm gonna select this text, I'm gonna press letter M for markdown, L for links, and I can convert this to a link. I'm gonna press L again. I'm gonna grab this, copy, paste. And if I wanna open the text in a new tab, just gonna grab this, letter M, L, then the letter T. It automatically will add everything for me, and I'm just gonna paste the link. This is just a way to do it really fast. If you wanna see what the keymaps do, you can go to my .files and you'll be able to find them there. I do this a lot as well. If you want to paste a GitHub repo as a link, so let me go to my .files latest repo. I'm just going to copy this again. Make sure you have it in your clipboard. Let me come back here to the file and I'm going to press Ctrl+G. Notice that it added it automatically as a link. Here's the link, and it also grabbed this part and put it here. In case you want to increase or decrease all the markdown headings in a file. Why did I create this? Because I have really old markdown documents that did not follow markdown guidelines. They had several H1 headings, so I wanted to increase all the headings to fix them. So I configured two keymaps, letter MHI and letter MHD. Let me go to another file. This only has a few headings. I'm gonna press here, letter MH for heading, capital I. It increased all of them. Notice that it's level 3 and level 4 now. I'm gonna undo that. If I press letter MHD, it's gonna decrease all of them. So I'm just gonna undo that again. Okay, moving on. I like wrapping at 80 characters. I don't like the lines to be longer than that. If I edit a file in Obsidian and open it in Neovim, line lengths are all over the place. Some of the lines go all the way up here and it doesn't look quite right. There's a line here at 80 characters and nothing goes above that. So to achieve that, I do two things, as you can see here. I set this option in the options.lua file. So once you reach the 80 character per line limit, it automatically moves to the line below. But this is not going to auto wrap lines that you paste into a file. If you open an existing document that has a lot of long lines, that is not going to take care of that. That's one of the options that I enabled, but I also enable prose wrap in the pretty.rc.yaml file. This requires the Prettier plugin. We're going to install it later, but I configured this option in the file. And this is the one that auto formats lines over 80 characters, the existing ones. And also if I paste a long line, it's going to wrap it. Now, this is the file, prettier.rc.yaml. I'm just going to delete this part here. And I add it to my home directory. Basically, I keep the file in my .files. Then I create a symlink in my home directory that points to that file. Let me show you that file real quick. Go to my .files latest directory. If I go to the root of the directory, you'll be able to see here prettier.rc.yaml file. And this is where I configure prose wrap only for markdown files. You can also set this option. This is the default, so you don't need to set it. And you can configure other options here as well. If I go to my home directory, as you can see, here's the file. It's just a link and it's pointing to this in my .files latest directory. I left some information here that is going to start looking for that file until it finds it. That's why I put it in my home directory, so I only have it in one place. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Prettier is going to auto format your file, but there are some times in which you don't want it to do that. Here's an example. This is a message that shows up properly on my page, and it's not auto formatted by Prettier. Because of this, I disabled linting, which are the warnings that show up when I have long lines. I get a warning here, so I disable that. And I also disabled Prettier so that it does not auto format this part inside this range. Let me go back to my blog post and I'll go to this disable auto formatting section. Notice that the message shows up correctly, but if I go back to the file and if I don't do this, let me add the message here again outside of this region, just pasted it. Notice that Prettier auto formatted the message, so it moved it. I'm just gonna refresh the page and this is how it shows up. So that's why I disable Prettier in specific sections of the file. Okay, so this is another keymap that I created. Sometimes I wanna add the file path to the current file as a comment. This uses this command in the background, which uses this plugin. So make sure you have it installed. So I'm gonna press right now, Ctrl+Z. This doesn't only work with markdown files, but basically any type of file. I'm gonna delete this. Moving on to the next one. Notice what I have in my clipboard right now. So if I press letter F as in file, and then as you can see here, P to copy the file path, I'm gonna press P. that added it to my clipboard. You can see the message down here. So if I open my clipboard, you'll be able to see that there. I need to copy that to my clipboard a lot of times, so it makes it pretty useful. Again, this is a keymap. You can find it in my keymaps file. Navigating the help pages. Let's say that you're creating a keymap and you don't know what a command does, or you want to learn more about folds. For example, you can use leader sh. This comes by default in lazyvim. This is not a keymap that I created. I'm just sharing it with you because it's really useful. Let's say that you want to know about this pwd. If I hit enter here, notice that I'm on the pane below. I can jump to the pane above with Ctrl+K, Ctrl+J to go down. You can find the information here. Print the current directory name. What if you want to jump here? You press capital K, so it would be Shift-K, takes you there. And what if you want to go back to where you were? You press Ctrl+O, and it takes you back. To close this pane in lazyvim is leader, W as in window, and D to delete it. So I highly recommend you looking at the help pages if you want to learn about anything related to Neovim. Okay, moving on. This is a default in lazyvim. If I press leader, S as in search, and then I press K here as in keymaps, I can search for specific keymaps. Let's say that I don't remember how to fold, and here are the different options. The ones that start with the P are the ones that I configured. The rest of them come with lazyvim by default. So this is just to remember or search for keymaps. This is a pretty useful tip. This is not related only to Markdown, but overall Neovim. If you're gonna paste something in macOS, don't use Command V to paste it, but instead use P or uppercase P. Let me give you an example. I'm just gonna grab this text here, just gonna copy it. Notice what happens if I'm in visual mode and I paste it. Notice that there's a line below right now. I'm gonna hit Command V. The line gets lost and it's pretty annoying, especially if you're pasting code. It's gonna delete lines and it's gonna be a mess. So let me undo that. Let me show you the right way of doing it. If I copy this, I come here, select this, and I press P. Notice that the line below remains there. Okay, so if you want to select the text inside a bullet point, you can press Control Space. This doesn't work if you have a markdown comment below in a file. It's gonna jump to that comment. I'm not sure why that happens, but if you know, please let me know. Let me give it a try. I'm gonna hit here Control Space, and it jumped here to the comment. But if now I go to the bottom of the file, there are no comments down here. And if I press Control Space, it's gonna select that text. I can keep pressing it, Control Space, it's gonna keep selecting more text. I can go back with backspace. If I hit it, I can go back in the selection. So if you're able to figure that one out, please let me know, because I find it pretty useful to select text in a bullet point. And I do that regularly. Something else that I tried was to indent with tab, but don't do it, because if you use snippets and you want to jump to the next section of your snippet, this is going to interfere. Instead of trying to use tab, just use the default. In insert mode, you can indent with Ctrl+T and Ctrl+D, or in normal mode with the greater than symbol, if you press it twice. So if I press here greater than 2 times, it's going to indent. I can indent back if I press these two. And if I'm in insert mode, let's say that I'm on the line below and I want to indent it, I press Ctrl+T or Ctrl+D. If instead you try to use tab, this is what wouldn't work. Let me add a snippet. I'm gonna accept this with Ctrl+Y. I'm gonna add some text here. So to jump to the next section here, I press tab, so that wouldn't work. If you need to open the current file in Finder, you can press leader F and capital O. You can see here to open the file, and it shows it to you there. Sometimes you might need to do that to share the file or something. Another tip that I have for you is to use the alternate file. Let me go to my Obsidian directory. If I want to alternate between the two buffers that you see there, I configured it to use space, and it just switches between the two of them. I changed it to space because I use that a lot. I'm usually alternating between two different files. And I also alternate between the last two tmux sessions, and I do that with Ctrl+B space, or in my case, hyper+b space. If I press that, hyper+b space takes me to this other tmux session. Notice here, Obsidian main. If I press hyper+b space, takes me back to the session that I was at. I'm gonna press it again, takes me back. So I'm just alternating between these last two tmux sessions. I do that a lot as well. If you want to learn more about this, I have a video to alternate between the last two sessions and Neovim buffers. You can find that here. I'm gonna leave it in the video description as well. Now, how do I do hyper+t+r and hyper+t+j? These are tmux commands. I'm using the Primeagen's tmux-sshonizer script. I explain everything in detail. I have a video, you can find it here. I'm gonna leave it in the video description. And I'm also using the BetterTouchTool app, which allows me to run this from any app, not just from the terminal itself. I also have a video about BetterTouchTool. You can find that here. Let's say that I want to go to my home directory. I press hyper-th, takes me back to my home directory. Hyper-tj takes me to my .files latest directory. Hyper-tl takes me to the guide that I'm working on. Hyper-tn shows me the list of directories that I have here configured. Hyper-en shows me the list of devices that I have configured in my SSH config file, so I can jump to any of these. So if you want to learn more about these, go to the videos that I mentioned here. I explain everything in detail. Sometimes you get a lot of noise messages here, and you might want to see them again. This is a default keymap in lazyvim, so you just press letter S, N as in noise, H for history, and it's gonna show you all the messages that have showed up. Usually it's if you have plugin updates, if you get a warning, if you get an error, you can see that here, and you can close out of this window with letter WD. Sometimes as well, you get a lot of messages on the screen whenever you have an error. Let's say you're configuring a keymap, you do something wrong, you're gonna get the screen full of errors, and you wanna dismiss those errors. How do you do that? You can press the keymap shown here, letter SND. Just gonna copy this, and I'm just gonna paste it here. Notice all the messages. I'm just gonna press letter SND, dismisses all of them. Let me try it again. I'm just gonna paste that, letter SND. One of my goals is to also learn new things that can help me optimize my markdown workflow. So if you have any tips that you use, any keymaps, any plugins, please leave them down in the comments so I can improve my workflow. Also, let me know down in the comments, what do you want to see next? I was thinking about a video in which I go over my color scheme that I use in Neovim, Sketchy Bar, Kitty, tmux, everywhere. Maybe a video about Neovim basics. So just let me know down in the comments. So now we're going to move on to the next section, which is the markdown plugins. I'm going to fold everything to the level 2. Remember that that is with letter M, F, K. So I see only headings with level 2. I have these sorted by my personal preference. If you like these plugins, make sure you go to the GitHub page. You're going to find the GitHub page on each one of them. In lazyvim, you just press GX and it takes you there. Make sure to star them because there's a lot of work that was put into these and we all use and love them. So just show some love back to the developers. This is one of my favorite ones. We already went over this. I already showed you how bullet points work. So there's not much to cover here. Let's move on to the next one. Mini.ai. This is a great plugin. It comes installed by default in lazyvim, and it allows you to select text easily. Notice that there's this keymap. This is default. You don't need to add anything. This already comes with lazyvim. If I press VIQ, it's going to select inside or around quotes. Doesn't matter the type of quotes. I'm gonna press VIQ here. It also detects that, VIQ. If I press VAQ, around, it selects the quote as well. So you can see this. If I press V, notice that you have different options. You have around, inside text object. That's why I press E. And here you have a lot of different options. So Q is what I was pressing. Notice that it recognizes these 3 quotes. I also use VIG to select the text in the entire file. VI, and you can see here, G. So that way you don't have to go to the top of the file, enter visual mode, and then go to the bottom of the file. That's the way that I used to do it, but I do it this way now. Much easier and faster. I select text inside code blocks a lot, multiple times a day. So this is one of my favorite ones. If I press VIO, it's gonna select everything inside this code block. Or I can also press VAO and select the code block itself. So if you don't have this plugin installed, I highly recommend it. It works great, and I honestly couldn't live without it. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is stay-centered. If you have noticed, my cursor always stays in the middle. Doesn't matter where I go, the cursor is always in the middle. Notice that I'm at the bottom of the file. The cursor is still in the middle. You can configure some keymaps, but they don't work that well. I noticed that there's a new version or there's a new plugin inspired by this one. You'll be able to find it here. I haven't tested it, but if you want to go and check it out, give it a try and let me know what you think about it. Okay, moving on to the next one, outline.nvim. I really love this. If I want to navigate through my markdown files easily through all the headings, I just press letter O. That's the way that I configured it. And I can go to whatever heading I want. I just hit enter on any of the headings and it's going to take me there. And I can close it again with letter O. I created a video about this plugin. If you want to learn how I configure it and everything, you're going to find the link in the video description, but it's here. Moving on to the next one, headlines.nvim. This is the one that makes my headings look great. I added these symbols depending on the level of the heading. This is a level 3 heading. The one above is a level 2 heading. I'm gonna jump to my .files latest directory, headlines.lua, here it is. And here's where I configure it. Here I just set up the colors, the code block color, the line of dashes color as well, some other options here. And this is where I configure the numbers on the headlines. So really great plugin. I like it a lot. You can customize it to your liking. Spectre, I use this a lot to find and replace text. So how do I use this? Let me just add the keymap here, which is leader SR. So if I press leader, S as in search, and then R as in replace, it's gonna open Spectre. Let's say that I wanna search Neovim, and I wanna replace that with Sunbeam, for example. I can do that, it's not a problem. Notice that only this file shows up, but let's search something different. I'm gonna search for sketchy bar. Sketchy bar. Notice that it shows up in different files. You can open the help pane with question mark. You can see the mappings. You can replace all with letter R. That would replace it on every single file. But if, for example, let's say that you want to replace only on a specific file on this one, I'm just gonna grab it. I'm just gonna paste it here in the path. Notice that only that file shows now, so I can replace on that specific file only. I'm just gonna delete this. And let's say that I don't want to replace it here. I don't want to replace this entry. I'm just gonna hit DD to delete that, DD to delete it, DD. I wanna wrap this so that I can see the entire line. So I'm gonna press letter U, W to wrap, and I can see the entire line. If I press DD again, I can enable or disable. I'm not gonna replace anything. To close out of here, I just press Q. Auto-save. Okay, so this is a really controversial plugin. A lot of people hate it. Some other people love it. I personally, when I'm editing markdown files, I like auto-saving because it auto-formats the file as well. So if I edit something here at the bottom of the file, I'm gonna add a new line, new text. As soon as I quit insert mode, it's going to auto-save for me. Okay, so I'm here in normal mode. Notice the message auto-saved. And if I undo that as well, I'm just gonna hit U, it auto-saved again. If you want to learn more about that, I have a video and you'll be able to find that as well in the video description. This is another one that I use sometimes, especially in the university for assignments. It already comes installed by default with lazyvim. I just changed the mapping to letter MP as in markdown-preview. So let me show how this file looks real quick. I'm just going to press letter MP. It opens this and I can print this. I can switch it to light mode or dark mode, however you prefer it. If you click here, it's going to switch to light mode and then you can print this. It looks pretty awesome. Moving on to the next one. This is another plugin by the same developer of mini.ai, another wonderful plugin that I use a lot. So let's say that I want to surround some part of the text. Let's say that I want to surround this. I'm going to select these two words and I'm going to press this GSA double quote. GSA double quote. It surrounded it. I can also do GSA open bracket, surrounded it. And you can use a lot more options to surround stuff. Let's say that you want to replace a surrounding. Let's say that I have this surrounded text and I want to replace the double quotes with single quotes. I press go to surround, replace double quotes with single quotes. Notice that I'm inside the text here. So I'm going to press GSR double quote, single quote. And it replaced it. Let's say that I want to replace this with parentheses. Just gonna do GSR, single quotes, parentheses, and it replaced it as well. Let me undo this. What if I want to remove a surround? I left the keymap here. Go to surround, delete, and then the symbol. So I'm gonna press here, GSD, single quote, it removed it. I'm gonna replace it with a square bracket, GSR, single quote, square bracket. And if I want to delete it, GSD, square bracket. So I'm gonna undo this. So again, this is a pretty wonderful plugin. You're gonna use it a lot. Now, these two plugins, I use them in combination. This one is to view images in Neovim. And I also use this other one to paste images in Neovim. So previously in the video, I already showed you how I view images, how I paste images. I can paste them in different formats, AVIF, WebP, PNG, JPG, whatever you prefer. And if you want to learn more about how I use these two plugins, how I configure them with Kitty, how I configure them in macOS, I have a video. You'll be able to find that as well in the video description. Okay, so moving on to the next one, Buff Explorer. I really like this one because it allows me to close buffers I don't need with the letter D. It sorts them by most recently used by default, as you can see here. And the navigation in this plugin is basically the same compared to when I'm navigating tmux sessions. I just use J and K in both tools. Let me go to my .files latest directory. I'm gonna press Shift H. It's gonna open this and I can navigate between the buffers with just J and K. This is the one that I'm on right now. This is the previous one. So I would alternate between these two. And I navigate the same way in tmux sessions. hyper+t+r, show the tmux sessions with J and K. So I like the consistency that this plugin provides for my navigating purposes. I go over all of this in the video that I have here, and I also alternate between the last two tmux sessions and Neovim buffers if you want to check it out. It's going to be in the video description. By default, if you press Shift H or Shift L, you're gonna navigate between buffers, but I disable that. And instead, those two keys open Buff Explorer so that I don't have to be jumping around buffers. I can instead come here, select the buffer that I want, and that's it. You can also use another default keymap in lazyvim, which is letter FB to see the buffers. This shows you a preview, which is quite nice, but I'm already used to Buff Explorer, so that's why I use that. But this is an option as well if you don't want to install an additional plugin. Let me close out of here. Telescope, this does not even need a mention, but if you're new to Neovim, this is how you can find files easily. I have a keymap, letter FF, and I can type something here. Let's say that I want to look for kitty, and I can navigate between these, and I can open the one that I want. Or if I want to grep or search for something specific in my files, I press letter S as in search, G as in grep, as you can see here, and I can search for sketchy bar. It shows you here where it finds that specific text. I just swapped F lowercase f and F uppercase F because I like finding files at the root directory with letter FF, and that is in my Telescope file. You can find it in my .files. Moving on to the next one, treesitter. I just want the code blocks in my markdown files to have the proper syntax highlighting. So if you add a code block and the colors don't show up correctly, it's because you need to add that to treesitter. Notice that all of these show up correctly because I added them. You can use this command, check health, to see which ones are installed. Let me show you my file real quick. I'm gonna jump to my .files latest. I'm gonna search for treesitter here, and here's the file. Here's where I add the options. Okay, moving on to the next section, lazy extras. These are the ones that I use. You have two options to enable these. You can statically configure them in this lazy.lua file, or you can use the lazy extras command. Let me run that real quick. Lazy extras. I just hit tab, hit enter, and here you can enable or disable an extra with the X key. Notice that I have these enabled: harpoon, telescope, prettier, some languages. But I don't enable those here because I like to keep consistency across machines. If I jump to my laptop, I want to have the same plugins there. So I make the changes in this file, lazy.lua. Let me jump there real quick. Lazy.lua, it's this one here. And here's where I configure them. How do you know if it's lang, formatting, editor, or what to use here? You see that in lazy extras, and it's just going to show you here. Notice that it says editor, harpoon 2, editor, telescope, formatting, prettier. So that's how I added them here. This is one of the extras that I added for Markdown specifically. Notice that it includes several different plugins. It includes headlines, which is the one that modifies the headlines, markdown-preview, which is the one that we talked about before, Mason, lsp-config, and some other plugins. If you go to the website here, to the extras section, I'm going to go to the name of the extra, which is lang.markdown. I'm gonna hit GX here. It's gonna take me there. So I'm here on lang, markdown. You can find that here. Mason is going to install a few plugins for this specific extra, which are Markdown CLI 2 and Markdown Talk or TOC, which is the one for the table of contents. So if you enable that extra, it's going to install all these plugins, and additionally, it's going to install this and this. And it's also going to install Marksman. I'm not sure why it does not show here on the page, but it installs it as well. So what are these three plugins that I have listed here? Markdown CLI 2. This is the one that shows me warnings when the line length is exceeded, if I have invalid headings or duplicate headings, and it allows me to keep Markdown best practices. I'm just gonna duplicate this heading so you can see what I mean. YYP, it auto-saved, but this plugin is detecting that I have a duplicate heading, and it tells me that I cannot have multiple headings with the same content. So I would have to change this. If I change it after saving, the warning is gone. Or if I try to add H1 heading here, it's gonna scream at me and tell me that I should have a single H1 heading in the entire file. So I really like this plugin. It helps me follow Markdown best practices. There are a few times in which you wanna modify those warnings. So you just have to copy the following file to each one of the directories where you want the settings to be applied. For example, I copied it to my obsidian-main directory and also to this other directory, which is the one that I'm working on. How do you know where you need to copy the file to? Just run this command, print working directory, and it's gonna show you that the working directory is GitHub and this. So this is where I copied it. The file that I have, you will be able to find it in my .files as well. Let me show it to you real quick. I'm just gonna open the file, leader FF, markdown lint. And here I modified a few things. I left comments so you can understand what they do and why I modified them. I disabled this, also this, and a few other ones as well. So if you use auto formatting the same way that I do, you probably will disable a few. There's another tip here. If you want to change the markdown lint settings inside a specific file, you just need to add this heading and that's going to take care of it. Or you can also add the range. I have a snippet configured for that. If I type here markdown and I press ctrl+y to accept this, it's going to show me this. So I can ignore a range, as you can see here in a file, or I can disable a specific rule in the entire file. If you want to see all the warnings, you can use letter XX and navigate between the warnings with brackets and D as in previous or next diagnostic. Let me create a few errors here. Just gonna duplicate this, as well. So if I press letter XX, I can go down here and it's gonna show me the different errors that I have across the file, or I can navigate between them using these keymaps that I have here, close square bracket D, and I can jump between them. So I'm just gonna delete these duplicate lines, delete this other one. Okay, moving on to the next plugin, Marksman. This one provides completion, go to definition, find references, diagnostics, and more. Notice that it also supports Wikilink style references that enable zettelkasten like note taking. So I'm gonna jump to this file, XOA under this heading, and I'm gonna show you how uppercase work. If I press it twice, uppercase twice, I can navigate between that hover menu that shows up. I can also do GD to jump to definition, to jump to a specific file. So I'm gonna go to my Obsidian directory right now, the XOA file, I'm here. I'm gonna fold my headings to level 2. I'm gonna come to this heading. Notice that I have a link here. If I press Shift K for capital K, shows me a hover menu. This is the other file. If I press again, Shift K, I can navigate this other file inside this hover menu. So that is something that Marksman allows me to do. If I press GD, it's gonna take me to that file and that heading directly, and I can press Ctrl+O to go back. Okay, so moving on to the next lazy extra, which is formatting prettier. This includes these plugins, Mason, Conform, and Nonetheless. If you go to the website as well, you're gonna see that Mason is going to install this plugin, which is prettier. And what do I mean by Mason? What is Mason? I left a description here. It's just a package manager for Neovim. So we have lazy extras, which is managing our packages, and we inside have Mason, which is also managing packages and installing other plugins. So the only package that Mason will install for this extra is Prettier. And Prettier is the one that auto-formats my file. It removes extra lines at the end. Notice that I'm gonna add a few extra lines here. If I exit out of insert mode, Prettier is going to remove them. It also removes blank spaces at the end of a file or at the end of a line. I'm going to leave some blank lines here. I'm gonna exit insert mode and Prettier is going to delete them. This is the one that also going to force my lines to be no longer than 80 characters. I really like this plugin a lot because it helps me keep consistency across my markdown files. Some of you probably will recommend the obsidian.nvim plugin. I had it installed for a few days, but I didn't understand the purpose, to be honest. I use Marksman, as you can see above. It allows me to jump to definition. So if you know what I could use this plugin for, please let me know down in the comments. Maybe I can understand how you guys use it and take advantage of it. Something that you need to keep in mind is that I like to keep my conceal level to 0 because I like to see all the symbols in the file. I want to see the code blocks, I want to see the backticks and everything. But if I press letter UC, it's going to conceal all those symbols. But that's just a personal preference. Okay, so this is my markdown workflow in 2024. Things are going to keep changing, and I'm going to create another guide next year with new tips, with new tricks, hopefully that you guys will share. Remember that if you found this video useful, you can support me. If you like the content, I left the link here. You can go to this website and just leave a tip there. If you have any ideas, suggestions, comments, things that I can improve, let me know down in the comments. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.